I'm sure they need no introduction, because when I started 91, I think you started 96 and 85.
Yeah.
So I am in between. He's the oldest, okay?
Youngest looking.
Youngest looking, okay, this is something that the other one I have to judge. So I think they don't need introduction, but nevertheless, I would like to say a couple of words on Andrew Gibson, that started with Six Senses and then Raison d'être, and then after he moved with Mandarin Oriental, Raffles, Fairmont, Sansei in USA, and then Accor in between.
Accor
and then Sensei. Oh my God, it's a long list when you are from 85 there.
I get confused.
I get confused too. Oh my God. Okay, it's easier with Neil. And then now you are consultant and helping new developers how to find the right concepts of building wellness.
Everything from how to do a treatment room to advising government strategies.
Okay, good. So Neil, it's easier because it's shorter. Started with 4 seasons. No, shorter in terms of 4 seasons. First experience, then you moved to Starwood Capital Group. This is where I met you, and then now with Six Senses for about almost 13 years. And and still there, and still a lot is happening here. And this is why we wanna have some question and answers. So my first question is, what are the changes or evolutions you see in the next years in the spa and wellness offerings and operation?
Okay. Is this working?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
I think some of that's already been answered by people who've done these amazing presentations since we started here this morning. But I think the biggest takeaway, and it may be stating the obvious, is that just perhaps as a result of COVID, as we come out of it, I mean, the relevance of what we all do every single day today has so much more resonance than it did before. So everyone's talking wellness, as we know. It means so many different things to different people. But what we do know is that the customer is way smarter about what we do than they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And the absolute key is to be sure that whatever we're doing, whatever you're doing, whatever we're doing is authentic, is real, because they're too savvy. We can't be fake. We have to do the real thing, which doesn't mean you have to do everything. We've got to do what we're good at, but really do it well, and that will unquestionably drive the business. I think if you look at the modalities that are being used today, and everyone in this room knows, you don't need me to tell you where the trends are going today, but I mean, certainly we at Six Senses are spending a huge amount of time on longevity, and we opened a first longevity clinic in Ibiza a year or so ago. We're doing what I think is kind of some edgy stuff around biohacking. We're putting specific biohacking lounges into our hotels now. We tested that last year when we opened Six Senses Montana, but what's coming in Six Senses London that will open probably a year from now will be way beyond anything we've ever done before, and touching on all the different aspects of biohacking. So everyone knows about cryo and about infrared and all these other modalities, but it's just become such a super exciting space, and the customer can't get enough of it. I talk later about rituals and festivals and all that, but it's kind of what I think is happening.
Okay. And
well, I'll take on a couple of things that Neil's mentioned there. One of the ones is exciting, and having been in this industry for a while, it's all about timing and being in the right place at the right time. If you look in the early 2000s, hotels desperately needed spas, and they didn't have the expertise to do them. And it was a boom for the management companies to come in. Six Senses was one of those. That was one of the first starts. And the Six Senses today is completely different to the Six Senses that Neil did. I mean, we were, I wouldn't say cowboys, but we were able to go out and just take on any spa we wanted because people needed us. They needed our expertise. And we've seen that evolution. And one word Neil mentioned now, which is kind of a buzzword, is longevity. You're hearing that word. And again, I think the time is right. All of you people out here, you're experts. You have fantastic careers ahead, and young people have a fantastic career in wellness. Why? Because I think there's been a clash of things that have come together that all make it totally relevant. First of all, COVID changed the way society thinks, not just in terms of wellness, but in terms of how we work and how we live. And as a result of that, how we placed our values. Somebody talked to me about values and said that's a really important element to have your values. On top of that, we have the media coverage of wellness. You've all been part of that to spread the word. So now wellness is a mainstream word. Everybody understands it. And everybody understands, or nearly everybody, not everybody, but most people understand that you need to take care of yourself. Nobody else is going to look after you. You have to look after yourself. The next really big shift, and that creates great opportunities. And then finally, with that, is this technological advance. And some of the things I heard today about technology remind me, it isn't always just about the latest gadget or the latest item to feature in your spa. That's certainly part of it. But it's really enabling technology to understand your guests better. The last presentation we saw from Lucknow, really
Fabulous.
good. I love what you're doing there, because that's what I was doing when I was with my spas. I wanted to know the data of our spas because I needed to convince the general managers that we were actually relevant and meant something. So it's fantastic. So all this data helps you do all of those things. And we're now in a fantastic opportunity. The next paradigm shift I'm going to predict after that, because you asked for the future, I'm not sure it'll come in 2 years, I think it'll take longer, is where governments, they're starting to, but when governments understand that it's cheaper to keep your population healthy than it is to have to look after them when they're sick. When they get that, you will see mandated things such as wellness in the workplace. There'll be mandated regulations for that, and you'll see a boom in these longevity centres and the juxtaposition of medical prevention and also just general well-being. So I think it's a great future, great opportunity for people.
Yes, and the most important is always the money point of it. So how can you...
Oh, you have to ruin things.
My question is...
You have to ruin things.
How does wellness generate revenues in hotel? That what I see that people
I'll take this first.
invest a lot of money, millions, and they struggle, etc. So what is
I kind of opened
your
myself
prediction?
up when I had to convince general managers. So anyway, long story short, back in 2007, 2008, a lady called Anne McCall, who was then the head of Fairmont Hotels, and I was the head of Mandarin Hotels, we had this predicament, and all of us do, of trying to convince the general managers that actually it is actually a lot more than that 5 or 6% revenue contribution that we're doing. It's worth more than that. How do you evaluate that? Very simple. And you can, any of you can do this in yourself. Take your marketing data that's available to you and have a look at the guest spend of your guests that use the spa and the wellness facilities against those that don't use it. I pretty much predict you food and beverage will be double. Those are the people that use your facilities will spend double on food and beverage. Logical. Why would you go out to eat when you're all in a dream state? You want to stay in the hotel, you want to eat, you want to enjoy. They will spend double occupancy goes up, length of stay goes up, use of suites goes up. So when you calculate all of that, that 2 or 3% contribution, I loved it when you said, oh, this is the 20%, but how does it affect the 80%? It totally affects the 80%. And that's when you can get across, in a way that hospitality management understand, you can get across the value of what wellness is doing. And I'll just finish and let Neil talk. This is going to get even more important because it's going to get even more important because wellness is no longer your spa and your fitness. Wellness is your employees. So how do you say, okay, well, we've got wellness programs for employees. How is that improving the revenue for our guests? We've got wellness that's actually going into the guest rooms to improve their sleep and give them better sleep or give them exercise. How does that track our guests? Xero have already made theirs. They're saying, actually, it's the whole thing altogether. And that's what it works. Sorry, Nick.
It's all right. There's been obviously a lot of conversation over the years around how wellness drives average rate, how it drives occupancy, how wellness goers or spa goers spend more money on, other revenue streams. All of that is proven. There's a lot of data around that. But I think it's a little more esoteric, and we tend to come at it not just from the numbers standpoint, that it's also about the intention, and it's about the culture that is created within each and everybody's organization. I mean, you talked about, the efforts that you had in convincing hotel GMs or managing directors. So, we looked at that a little bit differently. And when we hire a GM today, they won't get through the process until they've been interviewed by our head of wellness and our head of sustainability. And we don't expect everybody to be experts, because a lot of GMs didn't learn about this at school, right? Mm-hmm. But we do expect them to genuinely care about it. And we've seen that by hiring the right type of people that go through this process, by having a director of wellness in every property that is not the same as a spa director, but who touches every department within the hotel, by having a director of sustainability, you can argue, there's that sweet spot where wellness and sustainability become kind of the same thing. We have those people. So it's an investment in our manpower. It's an investment in our culture, which in turn drives the revenues and gives us the bottom lines and the capture rates that we expect. When we did our first property in Europe about 8 years ago, which was in Portugal in the Douro Valley, and we activated much of what I've just been talking about, we were amazed that we were showing 40% capture rates in the spa and the wellness, which for us had been unheard of. So we kind of look at that type of data, but it's really about, as I say, that intention and the fact that we do consider ourselves a wellness company, perhaps even ahead somewhat of being a hotel company. We see ourselves as a wellness group that activates that through the medium of some interesting hotels.
That's actually a very interesting point, because you're kind of touching on the evolution of hotels. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And hotels are no longer, we've just had that example of Xero. Right. We've had the example of Equinox. We've now, you're really bordering on being a lifestyle company. Yeah. Of which you just happen to have rooms, and your lifestyle is built about wellness and sustainability. Yeah. And we're starting to see that. There's a reason why the big conglomerates like Intercontinental bought Six Senses, and why Hyatt bought Miraval, and why? It's because they see the movement in society, and they need to understand how can they tap into that.
It's a different moment in time. You're absolutely right. When I look at kind of what takes up our time and what occupies my days and many of our team, the hotel is one piece of it. The spa is one piece of it. 70% of our projects today have a residential component to them, selling branded residential, right? And that gives us a ready-made kind of group of people that are occupying these residences that will obviously use all the the facilities of the hotel. We have spent the last 4 years or so putting together our club program, which is called Six Senses Place. The first one was supposed to be in New York. Our New York deal was a casualty of COVID, and we're now on another New York deal, which can take a bit longer. So our first Six Senses Place will actually open in London, as I said, kind of probably a year from now. And it's first and foremost a social club, right? But there's a very, very strong platform of wellness that goes along with the club that shows up in everything that's done. But it's not a clinic, right? We're not in the, you haven't got people wandering around in white coats. It's very much a social environment with great food and beverage, with great bars, but all of those modalities are there. So when you look at hotel, residential, club, and other areas of brand stretch.
And I think your property at Ibiza is also with the events that you're doing there.
Sure. It takes you to exactly retreats, festivals. We've done 2 festivals in Ibiza now called Alma in the month of November, when nobody goes to Ibiza, and they've been sold out. They happen in Turkey and in our property called Kaplankia near to Bodrum, a festival called Harvest that we're doing twice a year there. I mean, this is actually the future, and although I hate the word community, it's a little overused, but what all these...
I actually don't think it's used enough.
Well...
I
prefer tribe, you know.
The point I'm trying to get is that with community, I think we've underestimated the actual power of community. We kind of have known it, and blue zones go on about it. If you look at all the 5 blue zones around the world, community has been one of the big parts of it. So I actually don't think it's a bad word.
No, but it's used a lot, right? But it's exactly what, I don't know if we did it, I don't think we did it purposely, that it's something that we fell into with these different components of what we do under brand Six Senses that creates this tribe of followers.
We go back to people. People identify with your values, and they want to live those values.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that's it. And then the revenue, and then you don't have to worry about the revenue.
Okay, good.
Next.
So you answered the question. Okay, so we talked about the new trends, and I think wellness is democratized and going everywhere, as you can see, different types of wellness concepts, and it's exciting. And I think the biggest problem, once we solve the money problem, to find the right people. That's a big challenge. Anyway, it's a big challenge, but with your new concept...
I'll let Neil answer that one.
Yes, Neil first. Tell me, how do you handle that? Do you have to create a new type of education programs? How do you do that?
Everyone's talking about, everyone in the industry, and not just spa industry or wellness industry, about how difficult it is to find people, particularly in a post-COVID world where a lot of people have left the industry, particularly on the hotel side. I think that as a result of our culture and pillars, that we don't find it quite as difficult as everybody else does. And that's because, particularly on the sustainability side, you know, you get potential employees interviewing us as to what is our stance on sustainability, what are we doing, what do we care about, you know, how does that work? And you're finding that young people going into the industry or wanting a move really care about what is happening. So we're very well placed there because we have this culture of it that has gone on for 30 odd years. With on the wellness side, we spent, you know, we had an aha moment about don't know, Kent 4 or 5 years ago with Mission Wellness, where we said, you know, we're doing a really pretty good job with our customers, but we're perhaps not doing such a good job with our employees that we call hosts. So we spent 2 years creating, you know, we call it workplace wellness. We call it a mission wellness program that is very focused, very task-oriented, very program-oriented, and it goes on in every single property in every one of our corporate offices, and again just reinforces that culture of well-being within the workforce, right? And I mean, people are people. They feel cared for. They feel that we're focused on them and not as well as the guests in a different way. It just has tended to take on a different texture. And I think that's, you know, both those pieces, those values are an important part of why people want to come and work for us.
Well, from my side, I've got many clients that are reporting exactly that problem, that they have a shortage of people. And actually, the good part of it is, from the business levels itself, there seems to be plenty of business out there. The business is good. However, the increase in turnaways is also on the rise because they don't have enough people to service the facilities they've got and the demand they're getting. So, yes, there is a problem. It's not an easy problem. You just take Saudi Arabia, you know, the mega projects we hear in there. The Minister of Tourism said they need to train 100,000 Saudis a year for the next 10 years to meet the demands of hospitality, tourism, wellness in Saudi Arabia alone. I mean, if you filled up every hotel school in the world with just Saudis, you still wouldn't have enough space. So, yes, we have some issues in there. But I actually will come back to what Neil's just said. I don't think it's all about salary. I think it's about how well you treat your people and how well you give them options to enjoy their time with your company.
Yeah, I think Saudi is a particular country with problems because you have to hire 50% of Saudis and 50% or 40-60, which is a big problem.
I disagree. And I lived in Oman in the 1990s.
Same.
Oman had an Omanization program. Overnight, 95% of the front office in a 5-star Condé Nast ranked #1 in the world hotel had to be Omanis that had had a basic education of 2 years. You bring in English teachers to help them. You bring in trainers. You invest, and it works.
And it will change in Saudi. I mean, the government is very, very focused on that issue, and there are some huge plans in place to rectify.
Okay, so we created something unique, a new industry. Do you think there will be one day not only CEO, COO, CWO, Chief Wellness Officer? Do you have this
Absolutely.
plan?
Absolutely.
They have.
We have.
You have already?
Yeah, we do.
They've had for years.
Yeah.
Okay. Since when?
Well, since we...
Probably since Neil took over, actually.
version
He is the
2,
Chief Wellness Officer.
Okay.
But he's got a whole bunch of talent
I don't know if
around
it was
him.
clear for everyone here. But
No, I think, okay, I jest a little bit. They do have. And actually, I mean, one of the really nice things I've seen and listening and looking at the audience today is the number of hotel groups now that have got a head of wellness. So that's a very good start. And not only that, some of the hotel groups have now got regional heads of wellness and wellness teams. So there's a good start there. I would love us to get to the C-suite level of it. I think it will happen one day. It took a long time for them to get the Chief Information Officer up to a C-suite, but it's now C-suite because they recognise that that was something necessary. So I think it will occur. I also, more importantly than that, I would actually like to ensure that every spa director of every hotel is part of the executive committee of the hotel and attends the morning meetings, because still far too many hotels don't even think about that.
Not with us.
Yeah.
I have no doubt.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting, you know, we were bought by, or we sold to IHG about 5 years ago. You know, who didn't have a huge background in spa and wellness. And what we've found that, you know, our teams, many of whom you all know, are now kind of 3-4 years into it. We've done concepts for Regent hotels, which is one of our colleague brands.
Santa Monica one is going to open in 2 months.
That's right. And we haven't done for Kimpton, but Anna Bjørstam and her team, working very hard now on a concept for Intercontinental. Because one thing we'd said was that we're not going to put Six Senses spas in every single IHG brand. We felt that was a quick way to kill it all, So, but we could create different concepts for them to do. So, huge company, right? 6,500, 7,000 hotels that are being somewhat influenced by little us with 30 or 40 hotels coming, and which I think is indicative of where we are in the industry, and actually what Amanda was talking about in the last session. I mean, it's amazing that commitment that those large groups are showing today.
Good. I have more questions, but I think maybe someone from the audience want to ask and take this opportunity.
Hello. I see a hand rising.
Yes.
I'm bringing you the mic. We have the time for 2 questions, so yours is one.
That's good.
You can, and we have a second one from Stavros in Greece. So if you may stand up, tell us your name, where you come from. Thank you.
Hi, so it's Rebecca Doyle, Accor Hotels, so look after Fairmont and anything under the Aurora property. So my question's mainly to Neil, but you can all answer it. So I listened to a great podcast story the other week from Sanal, who's got the wellness book. I think she might be in here. So one of her comments that she made was that only 1% of people who work in spa ever become GMs. But if you look at us, we have our own ADR, so we have our own rooms ADR. We look after F&B. We have our own F&B element. We have our own rooms, everything. We have it. We're like a mini hotel within the hotel. How come you don't think that so many spa directors, group directors and that ever make it to GMs?
That's a really good question. Do you want to answer that, Andrew? No,
I will just. I mean that is an observation that has troubled me for my career. I mean, it's troubled me, and I wanted to make one of our spa directors become a GM, and I really worked on it. The opportunity came, and he's now. I'm not going to name him, but he's now a guy that's really risen up in the world of wellness. But he did an opening of a hotel where the GM had to get replaced because of whatever happened. He stepped up into it and was the acting GM for a while they were looking for somebody else. They looked at that, they saw that he had the skill set necessary, and they elevated him. That was the only time I've actually seen it happen. I suspect, and this will probably be about a 4-hour lecture, so I'll try and keep it quiet. I suspect it's because most hotel training schools don't even train in wellness or spa. It's an optional. Right. It's an option. So it doesn't even feature in that mindset. And then when you go into, not Neil's hotel, but you go into the more traditional corporate hotel setups, it's a whole program, or we must employ people that have done hotel management schools. They come in from these schools. They must have all the skill set, and they have a path. You can follow the path through front office. You can follow the path through food and beverage. It's logical. It's illogical for them to think of somebody down in the basement that could actually have a skill set that's capable of managing the hotel. We know it because spa directors have to be multi-talented. They have to be marketing experts because the marketing department doesn't help them. They have to be HR because HR doesn't want to deal with prima donna therapists. And they have to be a jack of all trades. So I would love to see it change, but I'm half full on that one.
I think we've had 1 or 2 people that have risen. I mean, one gentleman in particular who was our spa director in Turkey, who for a decent amount of time became the number 2 in that hotel, as we call them, hotel managers. I think what Andrew is saying is absolutely right, but I also think maybe it's because the opportunities aren't obvious, but a lot of great spa directors who go on to become area spa directors, are then often looking for corporate type roles, which, in our world certainly are at the same level as a general manager in that hierarchy or org chart, if you like, but they sometimes perhaps feel more comfortable in kind of just growing the bigger roles within the industry. But you raise a very valid point, and we need to at least provide better opportunity for people to shift. And we do it with sales people, with marketing directors, we do it with finance directors, and it's always complicated. And what we found, and particularly in finance, is we ask them to take a step back and go in as, say, a number 2 and do a year and then kind of move up that way. Maybe that's kind of a, I don't know. But,
on the other flip side of it, you don't see many purchasing managers going on to become general managers or housekeepers. There are some housekeepers that have made that. So there's kind of traditional routes up to becoming a general manager. Not all spa managers are even inclined to go that route anyway, or want to go that route. Some are very comfortable with what they're doing and why they're doing it. So it's a very complicated issue. I think the fundamental is if you recognize talent, then help that talent progress. That's really the message. So and for me, I've been lucky because I've had some really good chief executives. I mean, Mandarin Oriental was not a spa brand or a wellness brand. It is today. Everybody knows it in its niche of what it does. Why? Because the chief executive officer at that time when we were there wanted this brand to have wellness as a USP of the brand. And if your leadership doesn't get it, then the rest of you have got an uphill journey. And that's why the Red Sea project is quite interesting, because what we're seeing in Saudi is Saudi have got a 2030 vision, which is a fitter, healthier nation, basically. And wellness is going to be part of one of their pillars of doing that.
Sure.
They're changing the landscape, I think, also in their approach. Who's going to ask a question? Stavros?
There is one last question from Stavros Mavridis in Greece. Yes, sir.
Kalispera to all. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Sami. Hi, Neil.
Hi.
Relevant question. Andrew, you said before that on a sea level, it's good to see people that growing into the wellness industry. What do you think, it's all of you, the question is not only Andrew, to Neil and Sami. What do you think that the skill sets of that person needs to be in order for someone to choose for chief wellness officer, and what capabilities this person must have? Because I understand that in the future, the wellness industry needs to grow and continue all these that are happening now. Thank you.
Okay, I can only talk from my own career perspective on this, because I've managed to do, I don't think I've ever got C-suite. Yeah, I have got C-suite, I suppose. My career is, I've got a passion for what I do. I have a really good passion, and I want to do the very best. But I also go beyond my department. I've always gone beyond my department to help HR, help them in it or whatever. So in my junior years, I was always pushing that wellness envelope to see how far we could take it and what we could do, and getting involved, asking myself to go to the morning briefings, because, I mean, why would you have me? I'm the beach manager or whatever. Why? And I said, well, I think I need to know what the guests are doing and seeing how we can influence them. So I think it's the personality of the individual to drive themselves and push themselves beyond. One of the things I've been advising some of my spa teams is that I think workplace wellness, employee wellness, whatever you want to call it, is actually critical to the success of any operation. So if you are wellness for your hotel, your company, shouldn't you also be transporting and bringing that into looking after the employees, helping the HR team there to develop a strategy for that? So it's going above and beyond.
I think to rise up, and I can connect the question a bit to the question about the GM piece. I mean, the skills that are involved are not totally dissimilar to the skills that are needed for an F&B director or a rooms director as they rise up through that hierarchy. The reality is you have to be numerate, you have to understand the dynamics of the business, you have to be able to read and influence a P&L and a balance sheet, and you have to have those personal qualities that will allow you to deal with often extremely difficult ownership situations, because most companies today, with few exceptions, do not own their own hotels. So, you're dealing with institutional owners or high net worth owners, and everybody has their point of view. And a huge part of the day-to-day of those senior people is spent dealing with owners. A lot of time. That's probably 40% of my time.
Which comes back
every
to his
single
point
day.
about money.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Sorry, Sam.
Okay.
So you were right.
All ends with money.
I was
huh?
right.
Thank you.
Jean-Guy?
On this point about speaking to your GM, speaking to your owner, we will have a fantastic session tomorrow with Sonal and with Susan Holbrook about how to speak to them. How can you make them get you? So it's going to be great in the morning. Final question, and then we'll all go for lunch because it's really time. You have been instrumental in defining, developing, evolving the two words we have used for this convention, spa and wellness. There was a time, spa, what is it? Wellness, what is it? And still people are discussing. So if we go from spa and wellness, which were very big words and defined industries, if we go to the buzzword of last year, which was longevity, and if we go to the buzzword of today, which is recovery, that we've heard a lot on many slides, what would you say, each of you, Sami, you included, in one word, what is going to be the next buzzword that we're going to hear about, according to you, next year, 2 years, 5 years? One word.
Well, first of all, I think longevity's got a lot of mileage in it. I don't think that's going away for a while. I think that it is going to mean many things, just as the word spa, back in the word 2000, we were struggling to think, well, we don't like the word dog spa, we don't like the word medi-spa. It's diluting this. It didn't dilute it. Actually, it strengthened it. And I think longevity is going to morph into many different businesses. And I think that's got a long word in it. So I don't think we're beyond that. What's the next word? And by the way, I don't think recovery is actually a movement. I think recovery is part of the fitness. It's recognizing an element of fitness and that area that's forming that. And also, I hate the word spa now. I think spa is not it is part. It's a part, an important part of wellness, but it is that. It's not, you can't say spa and wellness are equal. Spa is a part of that wellness.
Did you come to this conclusion when you were at the Global Wellness Summit and Susie gave you a bubble, showing the numbers of the spa in the wellness?
I was
and
inadequate.
Yeah.
We're all inadequate next to Susie.
I totally agree with you, Andrew, because I just came from a Forbes Travel Guide event 2 days ago in Las Vegas, and the word was really longevity, because don't forget that we are aging population here in Europe and in the civilized world. Africa's average is 1920, but here it's about longevity, and it was all about it, how in 10 years, 20 years, people will travel 50% with wheelchair, etc. So a lot is going to happen with longevity.
And the pure definition of it just means length of life. So it
Length of
actually
life,
means nothing
yes.
really very much at all.
Wow.
But it's the connotations behind it.
It's a good word. We used
It's a
to
good
call
word.
it
It's an easy to catch
anti-aging,
word.
right?
Yeah.
Now it's
Longevity forever.
I don't think it can be one word. I think it's, to me, about it's that sweet spot between a super strong, honest wellness culture and how that blends with technology or wellness technology. We hear so much about that, and if the culture in the organization is right, you will get results. I am convinced of that. But it has to be real. It can't just be, I want to be in the wellness, or everyone's in wellness, I'll be in the wellness business tomorrow. It doesn't work. We all know that doesn't work, right? If I'm back to intention and having the right people in the right job. I look out here, I've got many of my Six Senses team here in the audience. Is Anna Curry there? I think
Yes.
You there?
Yes, yes, she is.
She's doing the spas for Intercon right now. Kent's here, Taryn's there. I mean, it's just joyful actually to see your own people kind of talking the talk and just spreading the news. It's what we've got to keep doing.
Thank you. And a big part of the we in wellness, there were lots of me moments. Now there's a lot of we moments, social, fun. As Dave Courtine says, bubbles with your bubbles. So, yeah. Long life to that, long life to spa, wellness, and longevity. Thank you for your time. Thank you for flying from Singapore, especially to be here today. Thank you for coming out of Grass Talk.